Poor people throughout this country, rural people, working class people are the people that bear the burden of that. While there are a small minority of people that seem to gather the wealth, I believe that we need to challenge this in a new form of political participation, one which includes all of those disenfranchised people, one that speaks with our voice and gives us a chance to say what we believe in this society instead of giving us a choice between one thing that is bad and one thing that is worse. I am by my nature not someone who is inclined to participate in electoral politics. That is because the Native community, for example, was not given the right to vote until 1924. And in a system that is based on one man, one vote, it is ironic that we were never given the right to vote until after we were a distinct minority in this North America. So today we are 1% of the population and we have the right to vote. We do not necessarily recognize the relevance of our vote in that process. We have not seen that our needs are reflected in the larger community, in the larger Congress. Instead, we have seen that today Native people are the poorest people in the country. That we have the highest, this reservation here where you're looking at, we have the highest, we have epidemic rates of teenage suicide. We have half our people live below the poverty level. 2/3 of our people live in substandard housing. Vast majority of these people have no telephones, many of them have no running water. This is a shame in a society that has so much wealth. It is a shame that we have so many children that can't graduate from school, and we have such high rates of language loss and culture loss in our community. At the same time, the situation which I face in my community is very much the situation of most other people in this country on some measure or another. The reality is that whether you are a person of color, whether you are a working class person who is working a 2-shift job and remain as the working poor, whether you are a mother, a single mother who works 2 jobs and cannot make a living and support her family, whether you are a farmer who is working on your land and trying to just keep your family alive, and every year you see more, whether it is corporate farming coming into the area or whether you see American trade and agricultural policies, if you're a farmer in Chiapas or a farmer in northern Minnesota that make it so you can't make a living, the reality is that the situation is getting worse and worse for all kinds of people in this country. I believe that it is time for people to stand and make a change. It is time for people to say that we do not want the pie. My community and I do not want the pie. We don't want a larger piece of the pie. We want a different pie. What we want to say is that we believe that this is time to change from a society based on conquest to a society based on survival. To change from a society where standard of living and quality of life is indicated by income and what kind of collar you have, whether it's a silk collar or a white collar. To change from a society that values that to a society that values if you have no collar, if you have a ribbon shirt, if you have a blue collar, that is as valuable as any other kind of collar, that the human dignity is valued instead of how much your net worth is. To change to a society that instead of talking about allowable levels of emissions and pollution in lakes here in northern Minnesota or elsewhere, and talking about carrying capacity of humans, instead talks about the impact of a decision to allow toxins on the 7th generation from now when you talk about bioaccumulation. We believe that it is time to talk about a society that instead of talking about reindustrialization, talks about deindustrialization. A society that talks about appropriate and intermediate technology, does not talk about corporate agriculture, talks about organic and sustainable agriculture. Those are the issues, that, energy development, all of those issues are issues that we as Indigenous people are intimately related to. They are also issues that all of us collectively are intimately related to, because the reality is that all of those policies forwarded by the dominant political paradigm are policies which affect us now, affect our ability to have a quality of life, and affect our future generations from here on out. I believe that it is for us to make a stand and to change the dialogue from something which is talking about one bad option to one worse option, to something that is talking about a vision for the future, something that actually those of us who have some vision, who have some principles, who have values, like all of us do deep inside us, something that we can embrace. And I think that that time is now. It is my belief that there is a time for change. In our prophecies, they always talk about that this is the time that change is going to come. And I know in my small pond that I live here on this reservation, that there is no way that my future and my children and my grandchildren's future can be secure unless that change is made in a larger area. Because what happens here affects everywhere else, and what happens in Washington affects me here in my community. So that's why I decided to join with you, and I'm real honored to be part of this process, and I look forward to the challenge and the future we make together. Miigwech.
Of course, that was Winona LaDuke, the 7th Generation Fund, the International Indigenous Women's Network, speaking from the Red River Reservation in Minnesota. I'd now like to introduce Linda Martin to introduce our next speaker. Linda Martin.
Our next speaker gave up a successful performing arts career to go home again. Keiko Bonk left New York City, where she was a performing artist. She's also a fine artist. She went home to her rural Hawaiian roots and was appalled at the paving over of the beautiful state. She didn't just complain, she did something about it. She ran for county council and defeated an entrenched Democratic councilperson. She ran a second time, just to prove it wasn't a fluke, and won re-election by more than 60%. But more than that, she turned that success as the only Green Party member on a 9-member council into the chairmanship of the Hawai'i County Council. Today, Keiko is taking on a new electoral challenge. Meet Keiko Bonk, the next mayor of Hawaii Island.
Aloha. I'll do that again. The call and response in Hawaii is very important to start anything. So, aloha nui loa. Thank you very much for inviting me here today to join in on the Ralph Nader kickoff for the country. As was said earlier by Linda, I am a 2-term elected Green councilwoman in America. And I was the first person to be elected in a partisan race in America, twice. Now I'm running for mayor. On my island, the Green Party has gone way beyond what many people thought could be done. It has rapidly evolved. It has evolved from good ideas and concerned citizens, but gone beyond that. The party is now the leading party on our island. In this election, in the present election, everyone, Democrat, Republican, and Independent alike, are using the rhetoric of Greens to get elected. Now, that might not be good, but they've taken that first step, which is to imitate us. They are all environmentalists. They are all for good planning and sustainable futures. Those exact words. Now the Greens are fighting the battle of actual implementation of good policy and legislation and administration in Hawaii. In 1992, as Linda mentioned, I upset the Democratic majority in Hawaii and became the first elected Green, did a lot of outreach in the community to establish a base for the closing of sugar as the main industry there in Hawaii, and worked together with the ex-sugar plantation workers to look for alternative economic development for our island. I spent a lot of time with volunteer students and volunteers in the community to help me do this because I was denied any staff. I had a half a secretary to share with the more progressive Democrat on the council, but no staff for research. The second time I was elected, I did a bigger upset, and it was not coincidence that we landed up with a 4 Democrat, 4 Republican council with 1 Green, because I upset it. And so for the first time, there was a dilemma in terms of a true majority on this council. And because of that, I was able to take the chair position, and for the first time, I believe, in America, actually hire Greens as government workers. And I have today, Barbara Bell is here with me today. Barbara, will you stand up? And she is the county clerk in charge of elections and all the entire council departments, which I'll elaborate on in a little while of what she did within the short time she was there. But I was also able to hire research staff, as well as the deputy county clerk that works with Barbara, and this time around, a special assistant, actually one of your own California-grown people, to come in and do actual legislative change. And we implemented, for the first time in America, a tax incentive bill that cleared up some of the problems in terms of us losing our native forests in Hawaii. And we were able to give native forests in Hawaii the lowest tax base so that ranchers would stop cutting down the forest to get their lowest tax assessments and stop them from destroying our native forests in Hawaii. So we're attracting, just in that piece of legislation itself, which took us quite a while to implement, we're getting interest from New Zealand and around this country to see how we actually did that. We had to do a lot of green planning, as I like to call it, bringing in traditional adversaries, sitting them down, and trying to work out a thing that would benefit not just agriculturalists, but the environmental sector as well. And it was accomplished. At the same time, we wrote legislation to overhaul the whole entire tax assessment base, and that's still pending, and the Green that I left behind to take my place when I stepped down to run for mayor is still trying to get that through legislation. We also did other things while we were in council, including, for the first time, bringing together a conference on true cost development that brought people from all over the world, including the Rocky Mountain Institute, are you having a hard time hearing me? I'm sorry. The Rocky Mountain Institute, as well as the Resource Renewal Institute, to look at true cost development in Hawaii. Anyway, even through our clerk's office, we were able to open up government in a way that was never done before. Now, my effectiveness as one person in government has expanded to include many more people. And right now in Hawaii alone, there are 3 other candidates running on our island, 2 Native Hawaiians, that are starting to build this party in a way that has never been done before. I come here today to say many things, but I see my time's running out, to say that the Hawai'i Green Party is honored to have Ralph Nader running as the presidential candidate, but to also remind the Greens that this is an inspirational thing to do at the national level. But like Mr. Nader has expressed today, unless we start building our bases and actually electing people at the grassroots level in this country, we will not be able to change our government. Now, the religious right knows this, and they've built their party base and power base in county government. And it's gone to the nation that way. Well, I know, and you know, the religious right is not religious or right. And as Greens, We need to be as smart as them, but smarter, and stay ahead of them as well, but learn from them as well. The power base is at the county level. It is at the grassroots level. We need to be smart, brave, strong, honest, and always 5 steps ahead of those that you challenge. Thank you for inviting me here today. And Hawaii supports Ralph Nader.
Mahalo, Keiko. Our next speaker, Ronnie Dugger, writer and journalist, probably best known to most of us as the founding editor of the Texas Observer, a wickedly progressive publication, and author of biographies on Lyndon Johnson and Ronald Reagan. Also a book that he's very proud of, documenting the corporate takeover of our universities. Ronnie has received numerous prestigious grants and awards, but I suspect those of us in this room will remember Ronnie best for his call, the call to progressive populists published in The Nation last summer, the call that led to the founding of the Alliance, a new national populist membership movement. Ronnie Dugger, writer, journalist, and now grassroots organizer.
I'm happy and proud to be here and to have a role in your proceedings. I'm here as an individual, not for the Alliance, which is a movement, not a party, and whose members are voting every which way. Ralph Nader's candidacy for the presidency under the banner of the Green Party is an invitation to citizens to think, to consider, and to reconsider. For he has arrived at a grave conclusion about our democracy. If he is right, and I believe that he is, this is an American emergency. He is our preeminent public citizen who walks through the ethical wilderness that our society has become and blazes paths with us back to justice and community. He chose for his lifelong career that of public citizen only after a Capitol Police officer caught General Motors spying on him because he was crusading before Congress for auto safety. Since then, the safety measures the government has required the automakers to provide have saved out of the deaths in car crashes, which on the projections would otherwise have occurred, about 1 million of our lives. A million of our lives. Ralph Nader is proof that one person can make a difference. As a Clinton supporter and dear friend of mine has said to me yesterday, he's made a difference in every one of our lives in things that matter to all of us, and we all know this. He established scores of well-known organizations whose serious, idealistic workers confront big government and big business on behalf of our safety, our health, our education, our welfare, our dignity, our livelihoods, our rights, our powers of self-governance. And they have won many victories for us. Even now he is meditating on how to stop state-sponsored gambling. Ralph Nader may be the best judge we have of the condition of our society. Certainly no one in the country is more qualified to be president. He has the integrity of Thoreau and the conscience of St. Francis. He knows how the government works. As Martin Luther King achieved more social reform, Nader has achieved more governmental reform than any one person in this generation. Struggling in Washington with Congress and the press for 4 decades, year after year, he has earned our respect and our close attention to his salient views. And this is what he has concluded. In Washington, he said during his press conference earlier today, many citizens groups have been fighting special interests on many fronts, and they always had a chance to go up against overwhelming odds, that is, to win. In the last 15 years, though, the destruction of democratic participatory rights has been so profound, these thousands of citizen groups no longer have a chance to prevail. There has been, quote, that closeout of citizenship. Now, please give Mr. Nader your attention. He says that represented as we roughly are by these citizens' groups, we no longer have a chance to prevail. The system has closed against the people on behalf of the large corporations. We are governed now by the national and multinational corporations. We, the people, wanted national health insurance, single payer. No, no. We demand and demand and demand again campaign finance reform. No, no. As Senate Majority Leader George Mitchell said as he quit Congress, this system stinks. This system is money. These are the facts that have driven Nader to say to the Greens, okay, you can run me for president. He's not doing this just for the hell of it. The democratic emergency has driven him to it. The purpose he specifies is to help build a long-term people's movement. The greatest influence the voters can have over the two parties, he told the press today, is for the voters simply to deny them their votes. Now, I myself have voted for every Democratic nominee for president since Adlai Stevenson. Angrily, sadly, and with trepidation, I have finally been driven to the decision that I will never vote for a sold-out Democrat for president again. The two-party trap is an ethical problem. We are berated about the damage and hurt the Republicans will do to the poor and the working class if we don't vote for the increasingly sold-out Democrats. But both parties have been controlled by the corporate oligarchy, in my opinion, since 1973. And look at the long-term damage that has done to the poor and the working people. Clinton's signing the welfare repeal bill shows right up on the boiling surface that once and for all the sea change has happened. There is risk and danger in being for Nader, and there is more risk and danger in being for Clinton. The logic of voting for the lesser of two evils assumes that we are talking about two separate evils. But on nearly every important issue, and on the one overriding issue of our time, the usurpation of our self-governance by the corporate oligarchy, the Democratic and Republican parties are now the same evil. Vote for either, and you vote for the worst evil possible, the destruction of our own self-governance and the control of our lives and work for the benefit of the large corporations and the super-rich. Although we still have our democratic forms, the corporate oligarchy buys and controls the content which is permitted to pass through those forms into law. Bribery is legalized. Elections are bought openly. Congress declares class war on the poor, and the Democratic president signs a bill driving 1 million more children into poverty. Giant radio and TV corporations control much of the access to our minds and the selection of the subjects we are invited to think about from day to day. And now, with both parties consenting, we are suffering the corporatization of health care, the incorporation for profit, and not our profit, of our very bodies. We are ruled by big business and big government as its paid hireling, and we know it. The divine right of kings has been replaced by the divine right of CEOs. That is where we are. Nobody knows exactly how to do what we have to do. But Nader said earlier today, with the system closed against us, that alternative parties have to venture forth and flourish among us. And he said, we have to go for a multi-party democracy with proportional representation, where political parties get representation in legislatures in proportion to how many of us vote for them. The time has come. The time has come. The corporate-bought government system has closed against us, and the time has come. We must have a nonviolent democratic revolution. We must start the hard work of building a new national people's movement and then link up with democratic organizations abroad to create a global people's movement that is the only possible source of the power and legitimacy that we need to replace one world corporate government with international democracy. Ralph Nader is running to help us do it, to help the Greens get on ballots, to help people in despair fight again, to strengthen our hope and therefore our civic action together. But I think we must prepare ourselves for much grief and anger. We have not lost our self-governance in a day, and we are not going to take our country back without a lot of struggle, passion, mistakes, recrimination, sadness, and loss. We do not take up this fight because we want to. We take it up because of the arrogance of the corporate oligarchy, matched to the arrogance of the Democrats that tell us we have no place to go. We are driven to it. We take up the struggle because we have been pushed too far. Ralph Nader in the White House, Reporters would have to actually study the issues to keep up with him. And the country would have a good time, because when he feels like it, he is a very funny man. He would govern for the people, for the public investments that make jobs that will make sense out of welfare reform, and above all, for our democracy, for our self-governance, free of the wholly illegitimate political power of corporations. But even these things are not the point just now. The point is the American emergency. Think along with Ralph Nader, my fellow citizens. Consider and reconsider. Now is the necessary time to make a break and build a new country in this one. Join this peaceful, democratic revolution now, or wish you had later. Come fight for our country. With Tom Paine, we will lay then the axe to the root and teach governments humanity. It will be a joyous fight, but in due course, we will win it.
Ronnie Dugger. Okay. After 12 years of Reagan, Bush, many people across this country felt that a change in administration would make a difference in terms of issues of the environment. Were they wrong? Our next speaker, Sherry Meddick, is a nationally renowned environmental activist focusing on anti-nuclear issues and, of course, as a positive response, sustainable energy. She's from Orange County, California, and she's going to give us a critique of the Clinton-Gore failed environmental policy. Sherry Meddick.
There is life in Orange County. I'm living proof. Before I begin today, I'd like to dedicate all the thoughts that I am going to iterate today on behalf of three people. Stormy, who is home now recovering from cancer. My mother, my 82-year-old mother, who just finished radiation treatment due to cancer. And my dear friend, David Allen, who now apparently is boring the doctors because he seems to be pulling out of leukemia. And with that in mind, I'm going to talk a lot about toxics and the effects of health and safety on the public, what this administration has done, which is crime. And I hope you will join me in thinking positive for these three people in particular. The word change has been used by the current administration as a byline to explain what the president and the Democratic Party stood for. Roundly accepted by the public in 1992 and by many national environmental groups, the perception was that the change would be good for the environment. After all, how could the administration do anything bad with Al Gore on their team? As it turns out, the American public and most environmental groups were in one part betrayed and in one part self-responsible. Promised change came all right, but it was not the change promised or anticipated. What was seen as a potential environmental revolution turned out to be a corporate revolution, mired in corporate dollars, uncomparable to anything we have seen in scope in the United States history. America's future, our natural resources, and our health and safety were given away to national and international corporations. And while rousing rhetoric was aimed at the GOP for their blatantly anti-environmental agenda, in actuality, the GOP didn't need to do a thing. Because at the bottom of all of these giveaway bills was the signature of a self-described new kind of Democrat, Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton, new Democrat, ended up carrying anti-environmental, pro-corporate water for not only unsuspecting Democrats, but unsuspecting Republicans alike. The debate on the future of our old-growth forests is the centerpiece of this administration's commitment to the environment. In timber salvage legislation the administration supported and signed was a mandate for 4.5 million board feet of salvage logging. It should have been entitled savage logging, because that's exactly what it turned out to be.
Clinton's signature guaranteed that millions of acres of America's old-growth forests were given away to this nation's timber companies. And just to make sure that this sweet deal couldn't sink, he included in the bill a provision so that no one could bring suit against his action in Congress. So not only were your natural resources given away, but your due process under the law was given away. So you can say thanks for that. That's right. This corporate welfare program was promulgated under the auspices of forest health to protect the forest from nibbling insects and fire. Never mind that fire has always been and will always be an integral part of forest ecology, period, end of statement. Without fire, the forests die. In 1992, the Clinton administration promised citizens of East Liverpool, Ohio, that he would oppose a hazardous waste incinerator located a few hundred feet from a town school. Actually, it was Al Gore rode through town. Well, stop it. Shortly after Clinton became president, he allowed this incinerator to start up and operate despite not one, not two, but 3 failed test burns. It now puffs cancer-causing dioxin into the air, through and beyond the school and town. When in the air, it lands on the ground, it ends up in the food source, it ends up in the food chain. What can be done about it? Nothing at that point. And what did the administration have to say for itself? Sorry, we couldn't do anything. Then there's the Safe Drinking Water Act. Clinton, this new Democrat, sympathized with industry's contention that federal standards protecting this nation's drinking water were too stringent and too expensive. The administration supported amendments to the act that now allow increased levels of lead, radon, and arsenic to be gulped down and bathed in by this nation's men, women, and children. That's the new Democrat. That's the change. While the water polluters laugh, we all drink poison. Then there's pesticides. 2 weeks ago, the administration signed the Food Quality Protection Act. Sounds good, doesn't it? Food protection? Well, here's the truth and the upshot. The truth is that as a result of this bill, 35 pesticides that were about to be outlawed because they cause cancer residues in processed foods will now remain in use on major food crops. Because these pesticides each carry a numerical contribution to cancer, the upshot is more cancer. At the same time that the consumer struggles with so-called risk assessment from virtually every other singular activity in this country that they don't know how to cumulatively assess. That's what we're up against. That's the change. The Vermont group Food and Water recently published an article on pesticides entitled The Great Pesticide Compromise, How Many Deaths for $1, discussing this recently passed pesticide law. Let me expand on that thought. Roughly 1 out of every 2 men get cancer. Roughly 1 out of every 3 women. This doesn't mean everybody dies, but what it does mean is that 1 out of 2 men and their families are impacted. 1 out of every 3 women and their families are impacted, and we are told this is okay. It's okay through risk assessment propositions, which basically is the fact that corporations say that it's okay that you and I get cancer. The numbers are only dealt with in terms of death. Finally, I want to talk about the Ward Valley radioactive waste dump. Lest you think that low-level radioactive waste is particular to California, I want to iterate that this is a national issue. Ward Valley, as a radioactive waste dump, threatens indigenous sovereignty of 5 separate tribes in California and more nationally. These policies threaten Illinois, Ohio, California, Texas, Nebraska, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, New Jersey, Massachusetts, and Pennsylvania. And if I've left anybody out, you're probably going to get hit with a DOE dump. So that's the change we've undergone under Clinton. I say it's time for a change. I say it's time for a man who will put people first instead of corporations. That's Ralph Nader. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, everyone. We've been organizing around the country for months. We've been building a grassroots campaign. In just a few seconds, the moment that we've been waiting for all this time is going to be Mr. Nader. And in order to welcome him, I encourage everybody to repeat, Nader 96. Let's give him a big welcome as he comes in. All right, Nader 96. Let's go. Nader 96. Nader 96. Nader 96. Okay. Okay. To introduce Mr. Nader, welcome back Ronnie Dugger.